Transbridge. Tonight, science, mathematics, physics, a world the regular human being cannot grasp. So we lend our voices, our understanding to the geniuses of theoretical physics. Tonight, the BBC, in collaboration with its Canadian affiliate, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, release one of the most disturbing, controversial interviews in the CBC's archives. In Inside Weekly, a banned radio broadcast documentary that has been on the shelves for upwards to about 3 decades, we dig deep into the bowels and the annals of the CBC Corporation to bring you a scandalous, uncensored interview with the man behind Stephen Hawking's voice. The keyboardist, the man who types in every word and every sentence that the world's foremost theoretical physicists and specialists on outer space and its expansion, and what evokes a thought in his mind. How much of what you hear of Stephen Hawking is from Stephen Hawking? Well, tonight, the startling revelations will not only disturb you, but creep most people out as we take you into the mind of Stephen Hawking and those behind it. Okay, so wait, start from the top. You're saying that, you worked on what project?
I worked on Team A.
What's
Team
that?
A is the team that basically suppresses his thoughts, so it can't get through the system.
What project is this called again?
It's called the Stephen Hawking Project.
Okay.
And basically, he's been a project since they realized that he was a threat.
With Flat Earth, right?
Well, a threat to
FET.
national security, as they say.
Flat Earth City.
But because of his popularity, they couldn't kill him. And there was a project that goes back to the Second World War that Hitler was working on. And it was a project that basically you were able to control the mind and the speech of a person, and that person be completely paralyzed, unconscious. Except what happened in the project, they couldn't get the person unconscious. The person would be conscious. Now, as they developed it after the Cold War, Stephen Hawking became a threat. They decided to try this project on him, and it worked.
So they silenced him.
They silenced him without killing him.
Because he is moving still. He's got his eyelids are kind of flickering. His eyeballs are moving.
Yeah, they didn't want to kill him because they thought if they killed him, it would look bad. And that more theories would come out and people would start to figure out things.
Okay.
So they figured by keeping him alive, but yet controlling his thoughts and his speech and everything he says, sort of misdirecting from what he was working on.
Well, they're not really controlling him. They just shut him down, and now they have a recording.
That's it. And basically what they're saying is keeping the national security theory alive and thriving it. Well,
So basically, let me, if I got this right, he was starting to uncover a massive conspiracy. He was starting to discover the possibility of flat Earth theory.
Yeah, and
He started seeing the occult symbolism everywhere with the UN flag and all that.
Right.
And that's when he got pricked with that needle.
Well, that was just a temporary thing.
But he got
Now we have
mugged,
on
he
a
got
system.
the needle.
Now we have on a system which it pulses through his neurological system.
Yeah, well,
Shuts down his regular thoughts and paralyzes him.
but the voice, you're just as much. You
Have
got him
you ever noticed
paralyzed,
that
but you guys are writing what he's saying. We went through all this before, but before we get to that, just to state what you were doing, you were.
Well, at first I was a neurological shutdown. I monitored a screen. And when I saw that his thoughts were getting through the system, I would stun him and shut him down. It's worse than air traffic controlling. Watching thoughts come out, I mean...
And especially this guy, he's pretty smart.
It's pretty stressful work. Like
He was pretty smart. I mean,
we all work for the Air Force. We're all at NASA.
Or, well, whatever, neural connections. When you say thoughts, you're talking about neural connections. I want to move my elbow. I want to move my elbow. No, you don't.
This is a guy that uses a few more percent of his brain than most people, right?
Yeah.
So you have to imagine that few percent and how much it's really worth. Imagine like the early programs that we had and sort of the shutdown was very difficult. And we were like 15 and 20 guys.
Trying to shut his thoughts down.
That monitored screens that were...
To shut down his thoughts.
To shut down his thoughts.
How does the machine interface with his brain to know what he's saying? How does that work? Like where do you plug that in? Well, how does that plug work?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So there is no plug.
No.
So you guys are just talking. So it's just you guys are talking.
The only plug that we have in it is the plug to shut him down. So
okay.
He can't talk.
So he can't talk. Can't move.
Can't.
So all the rest is you guys. You guys are doing all the talking.
That's Team B. What they do is they control everything that sort of comes out. Well, basically comes out of Stephen Hawking's. But that's a lot of top secret information we're not allowed to know. Crews of people come in, groups of different people, little whispers. Guy starts writing. We hear it when you hear it. And yeah, I would say that the theories that are coming out of them now are more in the interest of national security because that's what they want. Now it's one guy. It's one guy.
So it's like one guy can
shut down. I mean, the guy.
How does he do that? He's got a button?
Actually, no. I think there's 3 guys because it's on rotation 24 hours.
Yeah. So what is it, like a button almost? Like it's
no,
down
it's
to a remote?
It's a screen, and when it raises past a certain level, it's like it's going to get to a point where it might get out. So we keep them down there. Just by pushing a button, it lowers it. There's been one incident when the system was first developed, which is just based off the old system.
Yeah. How many people you shut down?
Right now? Well, there is others. There's new experiments now where we could have them actually walking and talking and not even be themselves at all. Unfortunately, the drugs in the system that we tried with Mr. Hawkins sort of crippled him. So he is crippled as a result of the drugs that he was given. And, although he is more mobile than he appears, because we constantly have him drugged, we constantly have him stunned, we constantly have him shut down. But they do work his eyes, they do work certain things.
So it's basically a whole puppet, basically. It's like a puppet for NASA.
Exactly. We call him the puppet in the office. We do. We refer to ourselves as puppeteers. There's the core, which is 3 others. We call ourselves the 3 puppeteers.
Right, could you say that again? The team of writers?
The team of writers today aren't writers. They're typists. They type in what they're told. You get a file that says top secret for your eyes only. You got some security standing around you. You type in what you're reading off the file. You send. They grab the copy. They destroy it. That's it. That's all.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's no way of...
And then 3 or 4 days later, you're watching television and there's Stephen Hawkins, the documentary.
Saying exact same thing.
Saying everything I written in. Never a key, a USB key, never a disc, never that. Always a piece of paper in an envelope, top secret, delivered by security, standing behind me.
And you would retype
I open it up. I'm not allowed to read it. I have to put it down and just type what I read as I see it. And then it's taken away, send, and I don't know what the hell, when's this going to happen?
So you have no way of knowing what you have no time to reread it while you're typing it.
No.
What was last
Even
time?
the episode of The Simpsons that he did, we had to write that. They gave us the script.
But was that really his voice in The Simpsons?
Yeah.
I heard it was somebody imitating his voice.
No, it was him, actually, for sure. No, it's in the credits.
But he has ALS. It would never pass on TV. They wouldn't allow his real voice. He's just mumbling.
Well, it's not his real voice. It's the voice from the Simon Spell.
Or the...
Yeah.
From the software.
The technology of that kind of...
What's the software called? Simon Says.
Simon Spell. It's voice back.
What did you say? You just said Simon Spell.
Simon Spell. Simon Says. Simon. The game Simon. I Spell.
The software is called Simon Spell.
Simon Spell. That's what we call it in the lab. but basically it's that
It's
game
Simon
that you
Says.
had as a kid. Spell car, C-A-R. That voice.
Oh, it's Simon
We took it
Spell.
from that voice.
Okay.
You know, because that was the only voice around at the time, and unfortunately, because of technological advancements and the fact that these crooners won't go realize, they think it's authentic to keep his voice the same way. Because if you change his voice now, it'll take people's mind off of what they believe he's saying because of what they believe he is.
So they thought like maybe mellowing out his voice and making it smoother, but then because the technology's there now, but they thought no, we'll stick with the old stuff because then people will freak out if that voice changes, if he gets a new voice. Because there is technology out now right now where you can have a much smoother delivery when you're talking. Like you don't have to talk, you could talk like a regular human being. There's like some pretty advanced voice recognition, spell and speak software programs out there. I've heard them. You can get the voice of William Shatner. You could get the voice of
Well, that's
Clint
just,
Eastwood,
unfortunately,
Kevin Spacey. Many of these voices could be the voices coming out of that software program called Simon Spell.
But that's the whole idea on keeping it real. If we get too advanced with them now, people will start to figure out something that maybe we're just.
I don't think so. I think you could basically have a guest appearance speaking for Stephen Hawking, like special guest.
But then,
like Kevin Spacey's
people will
voice
start
would be
putting it
lent
together.
to.
You put it together. That's why we're having this interview.
Kevin Spacey's voice would be lent to playing the voice of Stephen Hawking for one lecture.
No, that would break the belief.
Or would that be bad? Because then people are just like, now it's really obviously just wheeling out a vegetable and then you're just playing anything.
Exactly. That's the problem with that. And that's the reason why we never changed his voice.
But isn't that what you're doing anyway?
No, we had meetings about this. Should we change his voice, evolve his voice, get a new software system?
Something hipper for the youth?
But then again, it would take away what we know as Stephen Hawking.
As Stephen Hawking.
What we created as the version of Stephen Hawking as we know it. If we change that voice, it would be like changing your voice. It's a familiar voice. It's familiarity. That's what it's all about.
Well, Venus is as far as you think.
The funny thing is, it's like some of the theories that he started out writing about, and some of these so-called smart scientists that backed him on it. And then when we did the changeover, the shutdown.
Yeah.
Well,
because you obviously aren't supposed to know this.
Well,
you don't need to.
I was in security, and I knew that we had to shut them down. And when you know they have to shut somebody down, it's for those reasons. And
so you were in security and you got transferred into memo type.
Well, I was in
memo
security,
text.
But I wasn't actually the frontline security guy. I was one of those back tech guys. But I still knew what was going on at all times. And I knew what this operation was. And this operation was shutting down completely, but yet create this new persona that we have full control of, that makes the believers still believe that it's really him. Oh, he just got a disease, now he talks through this system. Well, let me tell you about this system. It's a pretty big system, and it's very little him. It's no him. None of him. It's about probably
the greater voice.
180 people.
So the 180
presently, but over the course of the last 25 years, I would say thousands have worked on it.
So there's thousands of people speaking on behalf of Stephen Hawking.
No, thousands of people that worked on keeping him down. A lot of physical.
How many people are the part of the voice team, the speaking, the writing?
Oh, that's at the high top. They're the ones that decide that. I've only been, like I said, a typist.
Top of what project?
The Stephen Hawking Project.
Okay.
Which is all top secret on where they're from and what their agenda is. We just take orders.
I knew it. I knew this whole thing was like behind it was like a million strings pulling levies and cogs and coils.
Yeah.
This thing is just a massive puppet show.
Yeah, it is. It really is, literally, like we call it. There is three guys that come in, give orders, a lot of whispering, very hard to talk to. We have to be very at ease or alert when they're around. We call them the three puppeteers, because really that's what they do. They come in and pull the strings. They come in with the envelopes. They come in with the scripts. Whenever he's doing an interview, the questions and the answers have to be put into the system, and then the answers have to be deleted just so we can get the timing right. So it's sort of like going through a song and playing both parts. You know, you can't just have him answer the questions. Even though his voice, that voice, very robotic, we still want to have a sense of rhythm and get it right, because people will pick up on that. There are some people out there that very audio
visual,
very audio, not visual, just they pick up on sounds, and they see something might be wrong, and we didn't want to we don't want that to happen.
Why did you leave the organization?
Well, I just started to realize that what we were doing to a human being. You know, like this guy.
Leave the guy alone. Get him off that stuff. Let him live his life. Let him get out of that chair and walk and say what the heck he pleases. Like, this is disgusting. Like, stop with this. Stop wheeling him around and pretending that this is what he's thinking, and let the guy live his life.
You know, this guy's being shut down and tortured. He's in pain as he sits there. He's being sort of like, imagine like small doses of like high voltage going through your system.
Like, this is disgusting. Like, stop with this. Stop wheeling him around and pretending that this is what he's thinking, and let the guy live his life.
You know, like
Stunning.
I started being stunned constantly. And it gives him that lively effect, but in actuality, he's going through a lot of pain as he sits there. His brain's being shut down, and yet he's trying to fight, because I've seen it. I've seen it on the screens, how his brain energy works, and it's extraordinary. But he's trying to fight to get his thoughts out, as we're suppressing him and controlling them and manipulating what he might be saying. Wow. So it's a huge battle, and I started to realize that
this is horrible.
This guy's a human being. I started to ask questions, and before I even got to a point of thinking, fuck, let this guy live.
And the government was paying. The government was paying for this. This is like many governments were paying for this.
This is
Britain, Canada, the U.S.
Oh yeah,
we're all backing this.
Israel.
What?
Oh yeah, Israel's right in there.
Saudi Arabia as well.
Funny thing is, you know what's going on in the world isn't really what's going on in the world.
No, they're all together.
Yeah.
Like this particular example is proof.
You know, some people
they're all working to keep this guy going around, pushing the Royal Society and NASA and
Amnesty International has got like I don't know how many charges against Saudi Arabia. Yet you see every president shaking.
So you left because you just felt it was immoral, I guess. After a while,
I just thought it was.
You had a conscience.
I did, because a few times
I talked
where I've talked to him.
You talked to Stephen.
I talked to Stephen.
His real voice.
His real voice.
When?
2003. 2003. We were changing over the system, which has always been an issue. He seems to overcome the drugs, always.
You were talking to him once?
Yeah.
Like there was a moment of lucidity? How did that happen?
We took him off the system. He was sedated, but I went in to put him back on the system, and he was up. And
what do you mean up?
He was up and talking.
What do you mean, he's out of his chair?
Out of his chair.
What?
Trying to walk, but you know, give him time, and if he was off the drugs, he would have been able to.
So this whole time he's drunk, and then you caught him like without it, and he was walking. Or
amazingly, he should have still been sedated, but this guy, like I said, is very extraordinary, and the will and what we've done to him and doing to him.
So you actually saw him walk.
Yeah, I seen him walk. I've heard of other stories where he even tried to run out of the room.
You not walk, like, just so that it's clear to the people listening to this thing. Not walk before. You saw him walk while he was paralyzed. He got up that week that he was off the system.
Off the medication. But I've heard stories where it took 3 guards to hold him down. He's trying to get up. I mean, early on.
So he was strong. I mean, he still is strong, but they have him down, right?
Well, I think he's just a very smart guy in his will at times. Even now, today, to this day, with the system that we have him on.
What did he say when he was trying to get up and they tried to put him, those 3 guards were trying to put him back down before you put him back?
I think it's, I want to go home. Let me go home. Let me go home.
Just let me live my life.
Yeah. Something like that. I remember hearing that. I remember that's the thought that started to make me think, what are we doing? What are we doing? You know, and then when you keep them down all the time and you just see a body there, you just sort of like forget. But then when I read the charts and I have to go back and do reports on what, you know, the system is letting out, even though there's a guy sitting there and realizes when it goes past a certain thing, you just hit a button. If it keeps going, you hit another button and everybody else will take care of it. Those same charts that I used to look on a screen and shut down with 20 other people. I started to realize this is inhumane. Why not let the guy go? Then when I started to question my superiors about it, right away, like I had to change my name. I was getting threats. I was being watched like I've never believed. And I know what security and surveillance is all about. That's what I do. I know when I'm being...
Yeah, you know when you're being watched, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely...
So
and then in 2003, when he spoke to me, he said, why? Why are you doing this to me?
He just...
Then he said, I know why you're doing this to me. And then he said, don't play their game. You'll only be killed. And then, of course, a bunch of guards came in. I was removed from the room. Next time I saw him, he was sedated and back on the system.
Wow.
So that's something I've been living with for these years, and when I started asking questions...
What was he working on? Like, well, what was he working on?
Excuse me?
You're asking questions, like, what was he working on? That was so sensitive.
Exactly. Then I started to do some research, and I realized that he was finding out some real information that was more truthful than what we all know and what we're told. Then I started to realize that the only reason why he was a national or security threat or an international security threat was because of what he knew.
So they took him down.
So they took him